Green Bay Packers. The question with the Green Bay Packers isn't, are they going to be competitive? The question is, are they going to be able to do the things that they do in the regular season in the playoffs? No matter what they bring to this team, acquisitions that they made and movement that they've made, and they haven't made. They brought in Devin Funchess. I see right over there, $2.5 million. Devin Funchess is a good wide receiver, not a great wide receiver. He's more like a second or third guy. Yeah, and then you bring in Rick Wagner, who is a good offensive tackle, but not a great offensive tackle. So they really didn't make any moves this offseason. What I like about them is they have draft stock this year, and you know what Green Bay likes to do. Green Bay needs to add another wide receiver. That's what the Green Bay Packers need to do. They need another top wide receiver because Adams can't stay healthy. And when they lose Adams, they don't have a number one target. They haven't had a number one target. And Randall Cobb hasn't been that type of player in like 3 years. And Randall Cobb's obviously with the Cowboys, but
now he's with Houston now.
Oh, now he's with Houston. So
that was their panic move after losing DeAndre Hopkins for whatever reason.
My thought with this is they need to go after a wide receiver early in the draft and bring in another playmaker for Aaron Rodgers. So that's where I think Green Bay needs to go. Minnesota's a good team, man. They re-signed or they extended Kirk Cousins, which we knew they were going to do because you knew San Francisco was going to go after him next year if he was available. They made sure that they snagged him, and they made sure that he is not going to Kyle Shanahan and that San Francisco 49ers team. But don't quote this. I wouldn't be so surprised if Kirk Cousins doesn't get this team deep into the playoffs. They trade him next year to San Francisco. So it's still not out where I believe Kirk Cousins can't go to San Francisco. They just made sure that they control wherever he goes.
Maybe they can get their pass rush back.
True, yes. And Minnesota hasn't done anything this offseason. They really haven't.
They've gotten worse.
They got worse. They didn't add any players. I think giving Barr that contract last offseason, stealing him from the Jets, really affected them. It has affected them. Go look at their numbers. They're way over the salary cap. I mean, They had to give away Emerson Griffin, who is available still. And I think there will be a team that's going to snag him up. He's been their best pass rusher for the last 3 or 4 years. He missed the whole season last year because of his craziness. But Emerson is still a good player, and they lost him. And they could have given him $5-6 million. He probably would have stayed in Minnesota. But they didn't have the money to give it to him because they were too busy giving Barr the $70 million that he got last year. So, and I'm not saying Barr isn't a good player. I just don't think he was worth the money and putting themselves into really contract hell. So that's where they are.
But even so, they didn't really need to do that anyway because their team was already pretty good.
Mm-hmm. The Chicago Bears, I will tell you this. Oh, by the way, I didn't say what Minnesota needs to do in the draft. Minnesota needs to add pass rusher. That's what Minnesota needs. They need pass rushers. They lose Emerson Griffin. If I were them, I would do everything in my power to get the best pass rusher available in the first round. And where are they drafted?
I think the Bills' pick is 22, and I think their pick's 25.
So they got the Bills.
Yeah, so they could, from Diggs, yeah. So they could maybe trade up a 1 and maybe a 4 to move up a little bit to the middle of the first round. Mm-hmm. A.J. Espinoza, the pass rusher from Iowa, he had a bad combine, so he might slip a little. And then they got the LSU pass rusher, Chason. Both could be good options for them.
It's going to be very interesting. I think they go pass rusher in the first round. They need, and I do believe they're going to need corner help this year as well, too. They lost Rhodes. It was a big loss.
Yeah.
Where did Rhodes go?
Indianapolis. It was a nice deal.
Yeah, but Indianapolis lost their second guy to the Jets. So
Rhodes is better than him.
I'm not saying, Rhodes is also older and injury prone. The other guy isn't. So that's going to be an interesting. This is going to be a very interesting offseason in the draft for somebody like the Minnesota Vikings. The Chicago Bears. The fact that they brought Nick Foles made absolutely no sense. Mitchell Trubisky, who had a bad season last year, he's been fighting injury all season last year. He comes back in the second half, really didn't produce as much as everybody thought he was until the last 5 or 4 games, and he played very, very well. Nagy didn't like what he said on the sidelines. There was stuff going on the sidelines with him and Nagy, so Nagy decided to go after Nick Foles. I think it was a huge mistake because now you're telling that quarterback, your rookie quarterback that you moved up for and gave up so much draft prospects
to move up 1 pick.
To just move up 1 pick. You're pretty much telling him, we don't believe in you anymore. We don't think you're going to be the quarterback of the future of my team and my organization. That, to me, as a quarterback, means I don't want to be there anymore. So, Mitchell Trubisky, if I was Mitchell Trubisky, I wouldn't be happy bringing in somebody like Nick Foles. What I think, and I'm not even looking at the free agency, because the free agency the market that they have. You were just talking about Robert Quinn. I like Robert Quinn. 5 years, $70 million for an older player. Not a good move by them. Jimmy Graham, he's got a lot to prove. I think Jimmy Graham is the big pickup in the offseason for them. This is something they've been lacking. Their tight end couldn't stay healthy last year. You have now 2 good tight ends on that side. And you know the new NFL and the new style of NFL, 2 good tight ends is better than 1. So I like that move by them.
They might have to do that with lack of receiving depth, too.
What I think Chicago needs to do in this draft, another team, wide receiving help. They need wide receivers. They have lacked it. They brought in White a couple of years ago. They drafted him at number 10 or number 9, 7. Yeah. The guy was a bust. Okay, so they need to bring in, and listen, Justin's saying Jimmy Graham is whack. Here's the reason why I don't think Jimmy Graham is going to be whack with the Chicago Bears this year. Everybody thinks he's gonna be a terrible tight end and a terrible pickup. He's got a lot to prove, and he believes that he can still run and he can still make plays. I'm telling you right now, anybody that has fantasy, draft Jimmy Graham. You can get him in the 7th or 8th round. He will be a steal this year for the Chicago Bears. Remember I said that. And I won in both my fantasy leagues this year, my money fantasy leagues. I'm telling you right now, Jimmy Graham, he will be available in the 8th or 9th round for tight ends. Snag him up because I think he's going to have a good season. So I think wide receiver is where I think Chicago needs to go early. And they don't need any pass rushers. They need corner help too. Their corners stink, okay? Prince and Mukamara, who's not even part of the team anymore. I mean, this team stinks. They need corner help. They need safety help. They need to look that way. Because Ha Clinton Dix was on the team last year, right?
Yep.
They lost Ha Clinton Dix. They need corner help and safety help. What do we got? Is he gonna have 1,000 receiving yards?
No, that's a little tough to trust.
I think
for any tight end, that's tough to trust.
I say Jimmy Graham has between 800 and 900 yards. He's going to give you 5 or 6 touchdowns, whoever's throwing him the ball, and I think he's going to be a big red zone target for Chicago. So I'm telling you right now, Jimmy Graham's going to be a good player.
Somebody to take the attention off of Allen Robinson, too.
Absolutely. What do we got over here? Jimmy Graham will get a lot of targets and dump passes because the line will not hold for 5 seconds.
He's right to an extent because their tackles are really bad.
I'm sorry, I'm reading your thing on sideways, so it's harder to read, so I have to read it slowly. But yes, I agree. Anthony, I think Jimmy Graham's going to get a lot of targets. I think he's going to fit over there with the Bears. I think he's going to fit more with the Bears than he was with the Green Bay Packers, who Aaron Rodgers does not like to throw to tight ends. Go look at his numbers with tight ends. I think he's going to fit over there. I really do. And I know what you're going to say. Well, he didn't fit in Seattle. Go look at Russell Wilson. He don't like to throw to tight ends either. So
Seattle's always just a streaky skill player type anyway. They rotate receivers and tight ends all the time.
Absolutely.
So there's really no stars.
And the Detroit Lions. Go to the Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions, to me, I don't know what the Lions are doing.
We never know.
We never know what they're doing. Now, there were stories coming out from the Lions, Detroit Lions, that they were going to trade Matthew Stafford. Now they're thinking about holding on to him. Don't be so surprised if Matthew Stafford will be traded in the draft to a team that's looking for a starting quarterback or looking for a franchise quarterback. Teams like the Chargers, if they don't get the quarterback that they want, I could see the Chargers making a move for Matthew Stafford. They have draft stock. They have players that they can move and bring in somebody like a Matthew Stafford, who's still in the prime of his career and is still one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of football. So Matthew Stafford, there was talks that him and the coach are not getting along. Him
and the organization are not getting along either because of the spinal injuries.
I could see a movement sometime at the draft for that. What does this say? Garrett will be demolished. What is that? Demolish the Cowboys.
I hope so, but I have my doubts.
I like
you're the only Jason Garrett defender of.
I like Jason Garrett.
The network. Congratulations.
I think Jason Garrett. Go look at his numbers. His numbers don't lie. So, the Detroit Lions. I was very surprised they brought back Chase Daniels. I mean, that's a backup quarterback. He's not going to play much this year. Jaron Curse, the safety.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him a 1 year, $2.75 million contract.
He's a special teamer for the most part.
They brought in Darryl Roberts from the Jets, 1 year contract. Nothing big. Nothing. I mean, they brought in Desmond Trufant, who's a good player.
But then they lost Slay in the process.
Yeah, but they didn't want to pay Slay. They paid Trufant 2 years, $21 million. I mean, that's less and cheaper. And Trufant is not as good as Slay, but he's a good player.
I'm just saying they could have gotten both. Is what I'm saying.
I don't think they could afford both. I don't. So
look what else they gave. I think that would be worth it.
what do the Detroit Lions need to do in the draft? Well, they need offensive line help. They need defensive line help. I think they go defensive line. I really do. They need a pass rusher. This is something that they've needed for the last couple of years. I believe Young will still be on the board. I snag Young up. If Simmons is there, I snag Simmons. Because Simmons could be a pass rusher. He could also be a guy that can defend tight ends. He's a fast linebacker, one of the fastest linebackers we have ever seen. So I think he's a guy that is like another Luke Kuechly, a guy that can be the captain, the guy that's going to call the plays at the line of scrimmage. He's the guy I think the Lions need to go after if he's available. I think Simmons is going to the Washington Redskins. That's where I think he's going. So I look at Chase Young, if he's still on the board, and I think he will be on the board. Chase Young goes to Detroit. That's something that they need. They need wide receiving help. They do. They have a number two, a very good number two wide receiver. They don't have a number one. And I think with the draft stock the way it is and the wide receiving core that's in this draft and a lot of depth of wide receivers in this year draft, you can get a good wide receiver in the second and third round. That's where they need to go. They also need secondary help. They brought in Trufant. They brought in Darryl Roberts. Look at their safeties. They don't have any safeties. They need safety help. They need they need a strong safety that can get to the quarterback. So this is something they've been lacking for years. So I see Detroit doing something like that. Safety, they can use a younger corner. They can use a wide receiver, and they need pass rushes. So that's where I think they need to go. And by the way, they need a running back.
Yes, they do.
So
that's something they have to look at in the second round.
You can get a running back in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, a good running back. So that's where I think the Lions need to go in the draft. And that is our north of the AFC and north of the NFC. We're going to go through every single division, what they did in the offseason so far, and what they need to do in the draft. We did the AFC East and the NFC East last night. Was it last night?
We did the AFC and
Tuesday.
NFC East on Tuesday, yep.
And now we just did the NFC and AFC North. And the next show, we're going to do the South. So, and then we'll go up and down. But I'll tell you this right now. The 14 teams making it to the playoffs is going to change everything. Trust me. Believe me, guys. It's going to change everything. It's going to get 8 and 8 teams in the playoffs. It can even give 8 and 8 teams a chance to win a Super Bowl. And I think that could happen. I think you could see that this year, an 8 and 8 team go all the way to the Super Bowl and win it. It's possible.
Who would have thought?
So the NFL is making the right thing. I don't like the 17th game. I don't like that extra game. It doesn't make any sense. I think they're wrong about that. I think the NFL is wrong about that. But all in all, I think the NFL did the right thing, adding the extra teams. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it will open up other teams that you wouldn't expect to make the playoffs. Over the last couple of years, there are borderline playoff teams. The 9-7 Pittsburgh Steelers last year should have made the playoffs. They played very well in the second half. They could have made the playoffs this year if there were 14 teams making the playoffs. So there are a lot of teams that'll have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Do you think
they really deserve it at 8 and 8, though? I mean, 8 and 8 teams are average teams for the most part.
And we've seen crazier things. We've seen 6 seeds win the Super Bowl. So,
well, sure, but again, that's not going to be a constant all the time. Where 6 teams a lot is, while there are some great runs, it's still mostly they'll win a round and then they won't go much further. And with the quality of play dropping off, if you go to an 8 and 8 team, I don't know how many good matchups that'll lead to.
Again, we can go back and forth on what they need to do and what they should do. To me, you have to look at the big picture of where these teams are going and what these teams think they are moving forward. And if you're an 8 and 8 team, even though you're an 8 and 8 team, it could be the schedule, it could be the way you're playing these teams in the second half. You weren't a good first half team, but you're a better second half team. You don't know. So your argument is fair, but also arguing that point, saying that, well, you know what, an 8 and 8 team, it doesn't sound good, it doesn't fit. It fits very, very well because it gives an 8 and 8 team a chance. And some of these organizations that haven't made the playoffs for years get the opportunity to make a run in the playoffs. So,
well, it'll help in that sense. I feel like from a larger sample, there's going to be a lot of undeserving teams, though. So, and there's going to be a lot of blowouts against maybe a 13 and 3 2 seed. That is going to happen. You'll have your rarities, like the Titans this year, like the 8 and 8 Arizona Cardinals that went to the Super Bowl, like the Giants. There'll be some rarities, but I think for the most part, it's going to be a lot of undeserving teams.